So if you have customers already, first of all, hell yeah. Nice going.
Pat yourself on the back.
That's
crack
sick.
A beer.
That is hard to do.
but now you got work to do.
Now you have a fire. You started a fire. So how do you stoke the fire? Yes, okay, you need to have your firefighters working on that fire, but you also want to put a little gas on it. So what do you do when you already have customers and you're trying to increase the number of them?
Hello and welcome to the Open Hardware Manufacturing Podcast, the podcast about making open source hardware. I'm Lucian Chapar.
And I'm Stephen Oz.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about keeping sales up. We thought this would be a funny one to do immediately following an episode on keeping up with our production. In this, we're going to touch on what to do if you don't have customers, what to do if you already have customers, and all the other types of things you can try just to keep sales pipeline docked up and moving.
Yep.
Keep yourself busy.
Keep people coming in, seeing where people are coming in and doubling down on that and finding out where maybe you could do a better job and focusing on those and generally making sure that your sales pipeline is healthy.
And there's a lot to it, and we've tried a lot of things, and we're happy to be able to share our experiences with y'all.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So last time we recorded, we talked about the analogy that there's two demons in us, a pyromaniac and a firefighter. So last time it was trying to keep the fire suppressed and keeping up with your orders. And this time's how to make the fire as big as possible. How do we put as much fire for the firefighters to fight as possible?
Yes. How do we keep it burning? Because if it's not burning, okay, then what do the firefighters do?
Yeah.
You still need to have the fire, you still need stuff coming in. It's just nice to have the lead time lower. But yeah, we're kind of always in this battle between the two sides. So today we're talking about the other one.
Yeah, and these two halves need to be in perfect opposition of each other. You have a huge business problem. My favorite company, Husqvarna, is going bankrupt.
They're your favorite company?
They're one of my favorites. I think they have great products. They make
including your motorcycle.
They
right?
make chainsaws and motorcycles and everything in between, including pianos. It's just hilarious.
It's like a Yamaha.
Yeah, exactly.
Pianos, trombones, pick and place machines.
But they're going bankrupt right now because they produced $300 million worth of inventory without a buyer booked for any of it.
What?
Yeah.
They had too much fire extinguisher and not enough fire.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a delicate balance that moves in lockstep with each other.
Yeah.
I think the job of the pyro is to make as much work for the production team as possible.
And
that should lead it.
Yeah. And I think this is also one of the things you can control the least. You can control how many fire extinguishers you get. You can control how many firefighters you hire, right? You can't control the fire.
Yeah.
You can do things to influence it. You can try and put gas in there. You can try. The fire's just going to be as big as, I'm really stretching the analogy here, but it follows for sales. It is a black box. You put a bunch of stuff out into the ether and there's some output, but it's very opaque as to how things actually work. So a lot of this is trying to look inside that black box and understand as best you can in this incredibly complicated thing that is modern commerce.
Yeah.
How are people finding out about your thing? How are they making these decisions? It's honestly one of the most frustrating parts about running a company, I think, because I can't quantify it as well as I'd like. It's the least like Factorio.
Yeah. The fact you don't get to choose when something is sold is an eternal problem.
So how do you create this problem for your firefighters? How do you get people buying your stuff? We kind of broke this down into two main sections. One, you don't have any customers and you're trying to get them. What do you start pursuing? And then you already have customers. How do you increase it? How do you continue to stoke the fire? So we'll start with the first of you don't have any customers. You're trying to, and honestly, we should probably do a whole episode on product market fit because we're going to be dipping a little bit into this. And that's pretty important for all this of who is your customer? Do they even want it to begin with? Blah, 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 blah. We're kind of assuming you already know that generally a little bit about that it is useful to someone.
Yeah. And I think for the sake of this episode, we're going to just assume you have a decent product market fit.
Yeah. We're going to assume that you have a thing that some people want. And the problem is telling people about it. Whether you've made something that's useful for other people is a separate conversation we'll probably put into a different episode.
Yeah.
I kind of want to make that episode.
And that's a dangerous assumption to make.
It truly is.
Caution flag here.
Yeah. Honestly, we're probably doing these out of order. Product market fit should have, it's like designing your product comes before PRD, product requirements document.
Yeah.
This is also complicated because sometimes startups will just dump a lot of money into trying stuff until they get product market fit, and even us to some degree, we kind of stumbled around a little bit till we kind of slid into our product market fit. So it can come later. It's complicated and messy, but just for the sake of argument, we're assuming that people want your thing and it's just a matter of telling them about it.
So We thought of like the first real key thing in that paradigm is like just identify who the customer is.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's their demographic? And that can mean age, gender, geographic location,
Mm-hmm.
a million other variables.
Interests, career,
Yeah.
employment type.
Their role at a company.
Yep, exactly. Like whether or not they have kids. I'm not going to be, selling a crib to a, 24-year-old grad student that's single. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to advertise to them. I don't want to reach out to them as much as I would someone who's expecting.
And in figuring out who that person is, you'll figure out a lot of what the voice for your marketing and communication should look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is going to define a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. But aside that as well, there's like, what are their needs? Like what types of problems is your product or service aimed at solving for these people?
Yep. A great example for us, for the Lumen. At first, we were super bullish on like, this is for full production. You're making a large quantity of stuff, every week, and you're putting them out the door. And it can work for that. But we really found our product market fit in prototyping.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of realized this a couple of years in. We're like, oh, wow, people really want to use this for like doing a batch of like a couple hundred boards for internal testing or, something along those lines. And we changed the way we spoke about the machine. We changed how we talked in our copy and our ads. And it actually had a significant difference in how much it resonated with people. So understanding and like trying this stuff out and like changing how you talk about it and really spending a lot of time thinking about who these people are. And, even to the point of like what words matter to them, if I see, save weeks of engineering time, I'm trying to sell the Lumen to an engineering manager. I'm trying to send it to someone who runs a lab. Saving weeks of engineering time matters to that person. It doesn't as much for other people that might still want to use it. If you're using it to hack it for something else, maybe that sentence doesn't matter as much to you, but it's finding who that group is and how to speak to them. What's going to resonate with those people.
It could warrant A/B testing if there's high enough volume and you're not afraid of burning early contacts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure for Mr. Beast chocolate bars are an example, not sponsored, but they can try 2 different types of language on the same demographic and see what sticks better.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And kind of see what works. So mainly it's like all of this stuff really comes down to like, who are these people? What's their vibe? Why might they want it? Where do they hang out? What are they paying attention to? That kind of stuff is interesting. If like, my sister's pregnant, so I'm thinking about, having a baby in that demographic, like, she's going on The Bump every day, checking on the news, like, that newsletter or the website, I think is what it is. Like you would want to advertise there if you're selling a crib, that's where those people go hang out. So just understanding some of that stuff helps you kind of figure out where to start looking for these people. But yeah, so that's the first step. Who are these people? Who are you trying to sell to? What's their vibe? What's their sitch? Where are they? What are they paying attention to? What do they listen to?
Yeah, I think a lot of people fall into this pitfall in this step of communicating about what their thing does and what its specs are, where like it might be a lot more valuable to communicate the problem it solves.
Yes. Yeah. And actually we ran into this when I got destroyed.
Yes, you got nuked.
I got nuked from orbit. I was working on the I was working on the launch video for V4 and I was so proud of it. I was so proud. I spent like 3 weeks working on this launch video and I'm like, this is great. And it's talking about it's this fast, this much faster, this motherboard features, blah, blah, blah. I'm going into like all these like little nitty gritty details.
Commit log.
Yeah, it was almost like a commit log, right? Like it was super detailed. And we played it for a friend who we greatly respect the opinion of and who's in sales for, hardware stuff. And he's like, you guys, this is wrong. This is completely wrong. This is talking about the numbers that you care about and maybe the devs care about. But if I'm thinking about buying a Lumen, I don't care about what vacuum sensor you have on the motherboard. I don't give a crap. Yeah. I care about what's it going to do for me. How many boards can I make an hour? How is it going to save my iteration time? That's what matters to the people we're trying to push the Lumen to. And so I put my tail between my legs and I went and I remade the whole video all over again. And I'm so glad I did. He was so right. Mm-hmm. He was so right. But I was really sad for like 3 days. It really was devastating.
Yeah,
but it's good to do that.
You're still behind schedule from that.
I always will be.
And it's just like I think about the sell me this pen exercise. Like you're not going to yell at your prospects about what the ink tube is made out of.
Right.
They don't care.
Yep, they don't care. Some people do, but those are your super early adopters. There's a great book called Crossing the Chasm, which is about kind of like when you're trying to introduce a new hardware product. What group are you talking to and everything? Most of the bulk of the people you're trying to reach care about what it's going to do for them. and how reliable it's going to be for them. Not all the little specifics. That's your early adopter market. So yeah, super important. The way you're communicating this should really be about how is it going to help me? Why should I care?
Key thing to figure out your approach to.
And something that you will always have a suboptimal understanding of and will always be trying to tune to be better. You'll never know it fully.
There's probably always a friend in sales. They can just nuke you on what you think is good.
Which is a great thing. Yeah. It's awesome getting nuked from orbit about an understanding you have. Because then it's like, oh, great. You saved me from launching this video that was wrong. It's like, yeah, I had a really grubby week and a half remaking that video. I did not sleep very much, but I would do that 1,000 times over to make sure it's the right video.
Yeah. I think all of us can get so in our own heads about what we're doing and what we're communicating that it's always worth just shopping an idea or like a draft of copy just by a friend or family peer you respect.
Totally.
It can save you from getting nuked even harder than Steven.
Yes. And I think especially for, not to overgeneralize, but I think a lot of people in this podcast have some engineering backgrounds, open hardware manufacturing, probably pretty STEM related. I had some marketing background, but not as much. At the very least, you and I didn't have a tremendous amount. So reaching out to a friend that's aware of this kind of thing. If you have some of that experience yourself, great. Ignore this bit. You already know stuff that we don't, but it's been really helpful talking to people that understand this stuff better than you might, because it's helped us a lot.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
But that's the customer and their identity side of it. That's the customer angle and like who they are. But there's another component of this, which is just ads.
Yeah. So now we're kind of getting into what are the different ways you get customers, right? So like now you kind of know who this customer is. How do you pull people in? How do you get people aware of it? And ads is probably one of the most, time
honored.
Yeah. It's like the standard de facto, solution.
For us, it just felt like of course you do ads.
Right. Yeah. Ads were weird for us. We tried ads a whole bunch. And I think when I understand more about why they didn't work as well for us, it'd be interesting to do a whole episode about them. But in general, they were a complete and total flop for us across the board. And we tried a bunch of stuff. We tried advertising on social media. We tried advertising in places where we knew our customers would hang out when they're buying electronic components. Who are our customers? They're involved with EE stuff, right? Maybe they're buying parts. Well, maybe by the time you're buying parts, you may already know how you're getting your boards made. Maybe that's too late in the cycle when you're there. Okay, so where do you find those people? We tried advertising in a bunch of different places. And it never resulted in anything. We got some sales as a result of it, but like, here's why I think it didn't work generally is that the idea of having a pick and place in-house is not yet mainstream enough where an ad will convert somebody. You'll find an ad for like, Prusa's printers, right? And everyone generally that they're advertising to knows what a 3D printer is. They kind of understand why it's useful already. You get why a 3D printer is cool. A lot of people that we're showing ads to don't yet understand the value of a pick and place. It's not mainstream enough yet. So if you look at some of, Prusa's launch video, their ads, it's all about feature shootout because that's all anyone cares about. I don't care about the fact Apple doesn't advertise their iPhone saying, hey, guess what? You can make calls. Yeah. You can search things on the internet with this device. Everyone knows that already. And it's more about how fast is it? What's the battery life? It's the feature shootout. We're not there yet. So ads, I think that's maybe why we have a higher customer education. We have to let people know about why it's useful first. And I think that's why ads didn't work for us. But that's just my initial take. I'm honestly really not sure, but that's kind of what I pulled away from it.
My thoughts on this was like, our product it can be a really big emotional investment for people who hadn't heard of us before. Yeah. And like ads don't really establish a ton of social proof.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
There's things you can do besides ads that will connect with people a lot more sincerely and feel like they have a rapport and relationship to the product. Exactly.
Yeah. And if you're selling t-shirts, ads are great because my interaction with a company that sells me a t-shirt is incredibly hands-off and non-emotional, right? If I'm buying a t-shirt, that has a cute kitty on it or something like that, I just care about the cute kitty. I'm not invested in this thing. It's a cheap purchase. I'm just moving on with my life. I will make an impulse buy. An ad will sell me on something like that if it's interesting to me. And I'm like, yeah, I want that thing. I'm sold. But if it's a, machine and it's an infrastructure and it's a system and it's a way of doing things, much higher buy-in, different way of reaching those people.
Something that surprised me was that no one clicked on a mobile ad and bought a Lumen immediately. At first, that surprised me, but thinking about it more, it's like, oh, of course.
Yeah,
They're going to spend some time researching it. They're going to see if there's reviews. They're going to see if there's YouTube videos.
Exactly. I'm sure anyone that's ever bought a 3D printer that's listening to this, you don't see an ad for it and go, yeah, sure, I'll buy that. And then you immediately go buy it. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, and that's also, I think, a lot of where ads can be useful is like understanding who's clicking your ad, who they are they coming back and visiting again, all that kind of stuff. That does not work if you get an ad and you're like, oh, that's interesting. I can buy a pick and place. I didn't realize that was a thing. And then 3 months later, you organically Google Opulo and then you buy a pick and place. We have no way of knowing that ad actually worked. Even though that might have been the thing that told you about the Lumen, we have no insight into the fact that, because you're Googling it separately, you're aware of it, you're not checking out in the same session that you saw the ad. So it does not really work for that kind of thing as much as I was hoping it might.
Yeah. And then this is all as it relates to like an online pop-up style or banner style ad.
Yeah.
There's a ton of other avenues out there for advertisement. There's sponsoring events. There's a banner behind a blimp. There's a lot of fun
billboards,
ways to, like, non-traditional ads. Like Steven, you worked a ton at Deep Local where they'd make experiential like advertisements.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and they were really fun, and people had an incredible takeaway. They had a cool experience at an event, and that was part of the marketing for the thing, right? So yeah, there's a lot of ways to play it, and even not like on Instagram, there's a video of like the footage of the Lumen running, and like we still run one just a little bit because it's still worth keeping up in some capacities. That's one way to do it, but also like just Google ads, even though Google's been kind of a mess lately with their results, it's just kind of all over the place. But it's not that bad to do a little bit of like Google search results. I think that's a little bit easier for this kind of thing, especially based on what terms people are searching. Because if they're searching like in-house SMT, all right, you already get that you want to do this thing. I don't have to, the customer education of like, hey, this might be useful to you is done for those people. So it's a little easier to filter out based on like what query they're searching. So I think, search ads can actually work decently well, and they do for us. They actually do work pretty well for us. But like the media stuff, the social media stuff was just always been a flop. Every single one was a dud. Just did not do what I was hoping it would.
Yeah, it's been an expensive bummer.
Yes, it's been an incredibly expensive bummer. But if you have something that's easier to purchase, you have something that's a little bit easier to swallow, like, I don't know.
Something more like layperson friendly.
Yeah, that's not so specific. If you make a light up Pikachu keychain, like ads are going to be your best friend because it's going to reach a lot of people pretty cheaply. And you can probably narrow down to that group of people pretty well. So it depends on what your thing is, what your niche is, who your people are. It's going to depend a lot.
Yeah, it can feel like a totally different paradigm depending on the product. And like as an example, I had a friend in college selling laser cut pieces of acrylic with a clock mechanism in the center.
Oh yeah, that's
right.
Like
maybe like the silhouette of Abbey Road, the Beatles album, or like a little Iron Man with like an arc reactor.
Sure.
Like just little tchotchke stuff.
Yeah.
But for him, it was an exercise in ad money in versus sales out. And like he was controlling the ratio of spend for ads versus like revenue.
Yeah.
He was spending like tens of thousands of dollars a month on ads to get hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue.
Right.
And he was trying to just make his ads as effective as possible to achieve that revenue. And it was necessary. Yeah. And so it's to say there's products where you will have to engage with this. You'll have something that has like this viral component that is clickable, reshareable, credit card swipeable.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It just depends on what your thing is.
Yeah.
So, kind of understanding how wide is my appeal? Like what's the percentage of people that if we're shown an ad, they might be engaged to click on it versus how narrow it is. That's a huge thing to decide about whether or not it's worth running some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's ads. In general, I would not really recommend running many aside from some like Google search ads. Much beyond that, until it's a really well understood thing and it's an obvious convincer to your target market that you understand really well and exactly what they're looking for, it's going to be a waste of money, in my opinion. At least for the big broad thing like this. If you're trying to sell something that has like a real specific niche, maybe do some search ads and that's it. Like beyond that, you really got to know exactly who wants it. And there's got to be a lot of people and you got to be able to convert them with an ad, and it's got to be a pretty quick purchase. And then I think it's probably worth it to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you agree with that? Does that feel right to you?
I basically agree.
What does that mean?
Like, ads always feel inorganic to me. And I think this is a good segue. I'd rather not be the ad on the page, but I'd rather someone be on a page where they're learning about the product.
Great segue
Yeah.
into our next section, which is social media.
Yeah, and organic
Social media, we should say, because you can run an ad, you can sponsor a video that an influencer makes or whatever. And, there are ways to do that. And that also feels that way, but it's still an ad.
Mm-hmm.
It's still an ad, but organic social media is far and away what's worked the best for us.
Yeah. And it's every single company like vies to have a powerful social media machine behind their sales.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really important thing to achieve.
Yeah, it really is. YouTube has been huge for us. And part of that is like, we were talking earlier about customer education and people understanding why it's useful. In a YouTube video where we're talking about the machine and how it's being developed and all that kind of stuff, it's all kind of encoded, right? It's already baked in. People are understanding, oh, okay, this is kind of how it's useful. Oh, look, they use it for their own thing. It's entertainment. It's providing value to people of like, hey, look, I did XYZ on this cool thing. Check out how cool this is. But in the process, you're still letting them know about like, hey, there's also this cool machine that you can use to help you build your stuff. It's an awesome way to do it. I really think it's an awesome way. You're still providing value to people, even if they never want to buy a pick and place. I see this comment sometimes. People will comment on a YouTube video. I don't need a pick and place, but this is so cool. Yeah. It's like, great. No matter what, I'm still providing value to people. They're still enjoying watching it. But for the people that are interested in it and maybe want to pull the trigger, I'm reaching them too. It's great. I think it's a super cool way to reach people.
Yeah, I've had people walk up to me at trade shows and say the same thing. Love the videos. Don't need a pick and place. Big fan of the project. And I consider that a win.
Yes.
Because it's in their head. They know of it. Any conversation they're in where it comes to PCB assembly, our name's going to get thrown in the ring.
Exactly. And when you're trying to do something new that doesn't have the mind share, if I'm just trying to make another plunger, everyone knows what a plunger is. I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? But if I'm trying to like let people know that a plunger exists, just getting people to know about it and be like, share the fact, like, oh, hey, did you know you can buy a plunger? Oh, wow, great. Okay, cool. I'll go do it. Awesome. Like sharing that with people is half the battle because they're going to tell someone that might want it. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite examples of this is a company called Lumafield. Mm-hmm. They make a CT scanner. It effectively takes a bunch of x-rays and makes like a see-through 3D model of something that you put inside of it. It's deeply cool.
And it can like color the model based off density. It's incredible.
It's really cool. It's an awesome machine. We have some friends that work there and they do a really cool thing with social media where they will post a video of them scanning like a tube of toothpaste or just some random thing. And it's like the TikTok voice, what's inside a tube of toothpaste, and it's a clicky little Instagram thing. Yeah. And they're like, wow, this is what my tube of toothpaste looks like on the inside. And you're like, well, what is this company? Like, what is going on? And then you see, oh, they're a CT scanner. It's meant for scanning engineering samples, whatever. Like, and then you kind of understand more about it, but they're still providing value either way. It's great. And it's a great way to reach a lot of people without paying for crazy ads. And it also being an ad, it's an organic to run an ad. It's rad and organic to just post something cool that also kind of tells people about what you're doing.
I remember one post they had where it was like the scan of a aerated Nestle's Crunch Bar.
Oh, I didn't see that. That sounds sick.
And everyone was tagging their friends because they're like, look at how much a ripoff this candy bar is. Like, look how much chocolate they didn't give us.
Right,
and
right.
Millions of people saw it because everyone was tagging their buddies.
Yep.
That's so much better than like a paid sponsored ad segment appearing at the top of a YouTube video.
Exactly. Yep. I completely agree with you.
Just to hedge the YouTube thing here, it can be great for many things. But if there's a commodity item like a coffee mug, I don't sincerely know how much someone could milk that as a YouTube video.
Yeah, like if you make a coffee mug company or whatever, and you're trying to sell your mugs, you can still do it, but it's going to be considerably harder to have an organic social media presence relating to your product, I think, than Lumafield will, where like, yeah, we can 3D scan, see through your product and show you. That's insane. That's such a prime thing for social media. But like, I make a mug, it's going to be something completely tangent related,
I wouldn't play it as mug videos. I'd be showing like the entrepreneurial like hustle and making videos. It's not really about the mug itself.
Right.
Like, the journey is more interesting there.
That's a great point. Yeah. It's probably gonna be less product focused. Like we made videos about development of the machine and like, that's incredibly product focused, but yeah, I mean, that's a great example. There's a great guy on TikTok and Instagram. He goes by SB Mowing and all he does is his videos. He just goes up to people's houses for free and he mows their lawns and he,
I've seen those,
trims the edges and he does all those things. And it's like, that is a organic social media thing. And I just said SB Mowing. I know the name of his company because he goes at the end, SB Mowing out. And like, I remember that. And that's very valuable. Mowing itself is not tremendously fascinating, but the fact he makes these videos, we can kind of see the way he's doing it. He's talking with these people. He's getting the reactions. He found a way to get organic media out of something that's like maybe would have been otherwise harder to do on social media. So yeah, you know what? Never mind. You can kind of find a way to do it no matter what, if you're creative enough.
Yeah. And I'm sure Yeti has a YouTube channel for their mugs and coolers.
Yeah.
I've never seen one of their videos.
That's true. But you know what? It'd be great if they had a video of like, how long does this Yeti full of ice last in the oven? I'd click that. Yeah. How well does it insulate? Like, go for it, Yeti. Find that weird stuff out, you know?
Pop off at Yeti.
Pop off, Yeti. So it's way harder to make a video than it is to buy an ad, but it's way more useful, in my opinion. Right. At least at again, certain scales, asterisk to asterisk, you know, depending on what you're selling. If I'm just selling a goofy t-shirt, run an ad. Just run an ad. But if you're doing something, if you're trying to engage with, you know, people and your thing's a little interesting and you can find a good angle to it, I think social media is a great way to go about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Social media is hard.
Social media is really hard. Yeah. And it can't feel cloying. It can't feel like you're trying to advertise to people. You know, the goal should be making something that people think is cool and interesting and enjoyable. And you also create mind share about the thing you're doing.
Yeah, I know, Steven, I know for your videos, you have a good model. Like the video should be like 90% enjoyment and like a small percentage is like a request of the viewer.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like give, take, give, take. And like, there's I forget who said this, but like some other YouTuber friends of mine were like, you should never ask people to subscribe in the first 3/4 of the video, or at least until you've provided some value. Mm-hmm. Because if, you know, we're 30 seconds in, you haven't given me the topic of the video yet. And you're like, don't forget to subscribe. Why? Show me what the value is in me coming back. You haven't given yet. Give before you take, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think about that a lot too, is like the people are clicking because they're trying to get something. They want to see something cool. Give them that cool thing first. If it just feels like a big ad,
they're going to click away.
It just feels, you know, you got to be making something funny and cool and organic. But it's incredibly hard to do that.
Yeah, it's quite the balance to strike.
The other angle here, too, is that Google is the second biggest search engine in the world. So just doing well in YouTube search is also beneficial as well. Some of this YouTube's kind of the only exception here because, like, I don't know how much people are searching for things on Instagram, you know, but people will search in terms of like finding an answer to a question or a solution or something that you'd ask like normal SEO questions. But on YouTube, how do I change the, you know, a tire or whatever, those kinds of questions, you know, how do I solder XYZ? If you come up for that, that's great. You're catching people there as well. So you can also just do well in organic YouTube search. And that's another valuable thing, which we've started doing a little more of. And it's pretty nice. And if you don't want to pursue starting a whole social media thing about mowing a lawn or making mugs or whatever, if you find people that have, and they found a way to do that, you can always just send your product to them and, you know, give it to them for free or sponsor one of their videos. If I make lawnmowers, maybe I send a lawnmower to SB Mowing and I say, hey, do you want to do a sponsored video? I'd love to sponsor one of your videos. I'll send you a mower. I'll pay X amount, whatever. Work out a deal with them, figure out how that works and all that kind of stuff. I've only ever really been on the other side of that. But, you know, figure out that whole situation. And then they have that platform and it feels more organic. It's still kind of an ad, but it's way more organic than just like paying for an ad on a platform. So that's another avenue too, if you don't want to like go through the whole process of setting up the social media stuff yourself.
I can see that.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Not every company wants to be a YouTube company.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
I think this is the community where I need to make this disclaimer here as well.
Okay.
People listening, you may hate Facebook deeply.
Oh no, but I'm one of these people.
But Facebook ads are very important for most demographics.
Yeah, that's true. And this also kind of goes back to our original point of like, identify who your customer is. If your customer's on Facebook, I don't care how much you hate Facebook, you got to be on Facebook. It stinks. Like, you just got to do it. LinkedIn is also what I think about for us a little bit. Most people buy Lumen for their business. Chatting about this stuff on LinkedIn is kind of a part of that. I'm not the biggest fan of LinkedIn ever, but you know,
I learned to like it.
You got to learn it. That's where they are. You know, you got to meet them where they're at. Yeah.
Yeah. I just had to bring that up.
That's a really good point. I'm glad you did. Anything else about social media, about advertising? I think it's important to make it not feel too ad-y, too marketing-y, you know? I think that's a pretty big part of it.
People don't like feeling as if they're being astroturfed.
Yes.
You need to be cool. Like, you don't want to just go into a party screaming at people about what you do professionally.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Yep. You got to provide the value first and have the ask be small, subtle, and at the end, or at least when you've provided value.
Yeah.
You know?
And not only subtle and small, but efficient. You don't want to send people down a 4 clicks corridor to get to what you want them to do.
Exactly. Yep. And, you know, what we'll do is, you know, I'll kind of, at the beginning of a YouTube video, I haven't done this as much lately, but a lot of times people would find a video and they'd be like, what is this? I don't understand what's going on. Like I didn't clue them in very well. So I'd, you know, say something like, I'm Steven, you know, I started a company making an open source pick and place, and then I started a company selling them. And I show a couple clips of like the Lumen running and all this kind of thing. And it's a great way to clue people in of like, oh, this is this guy's deal. Oh, you can buy a pick and place from him. I set the stage. They understand. It's like 2 sentences and I move on and I subtly reference it moving forward just as necessary. You know, I don't try and bully it in or anything. It has to feel organic. Mm-hmm. And that's just upfront. Yeah. Here's the sitch, moving on. It works great.
Yeah. Show, don't tell. In other words.
Yeah. Well, I do technically tell. I do both. I say it in 2 quick sentences and then I show it. And then the rest of the video I'm showing it.
80% show, 20% tell.
Yeah, there you go. That's good. Yep.
I'll take it.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I feel good. I hope people get some good takeaways there.
Yep.
I'm sure we could do a whole episode on social media.
Yeah, honestly, that might be an interesting one because I have a lot to say about YouTube. But yeah, that's a big part. That's a big part of it. I think social media is a great way to go about doing it.
Completely opposite of social media, and a bit more traditional is just having a sales team.
Yeah.
Or at least salesperson.
Yep.
Or acting in like the role of salesman, saleswoman, you know.
Yep. Active sales.
Yeah. Convincing people to buy something. Yeah. Maybe even as a cold call. And this is something we've done somewhat, but there's no one at Opula that's full-time sales.
Yeah. Yeah. And we kind of thought about having someone come on specifically to do outbound sales. So inbound sales is like people reach out to you and they have questions and they need a little bit of massaging and convincing and, you know, conversation before they go over, you know, and they actually pull the trigger on making the purchase. Outbound is like cold calling, reaching out to people, poking people, trying to get people that way. And we have plenty of inbound. A lot of people are just find out about us via marketing and then they come in and then we just have a conversation with them and then they convert. But outbound, finding these people, reaching them out to them individually, that's kind of where we've been like, do we do it? Like we kind of always say like, if someone, wouldn't they just pay for themselves? You know, if they can sell X number of machines a month,
yeah,
okay, then great. Then that's just their salary plus some extra for the company. And then great. You know, that's wonderful. But
in that way, it's a hire that feels like it would be free.
Mm-hmm.
Asterisk massive risk. The risk being like, do they have the right SOP for reaching out to people? Like, is it a machine that's ready for someone to be in the driver's seat of?
Yeah. you mean like the sales org?
Yeah.
Being in the, okay.
Exactly.
I see what you mean. Yeah. That's a weird thing. Like, you know, it's pretty straightforward to find a salesperson for selling educational software. There's a lot of educational software out there. There aren't as many people that know how to sell desktop pick and places. That's a bit more of a niche. So we got some advice from a friend who's like, yeah, you need to be your first batch of salespeople because you still don't even know how to do sales for this product yet. You don't understand it yet. And if you try and put someone else on it, they're just going to flounder. They don't know yet either. And you're the best person to figure that out, being like the founding team, right? That's really important.
Yeah, we took that to heart.
Yeah, we took that to heart. So we did look into it. We did try and figure this out, but it doesn't scale nearly as well as marketing does. Like, it just doesn't. I'd always rather, at least for me personally, I'd always rather make a YouTube video, show some cool thing the Lumen's doing. It reaches, you know, tens of thousands of people instead of spending a day calling as many people as I possibly can and probably getting a rejection from almost all of them, you know?
Yeah, like I have no doubt that Steven could probably drum up a good handful of sales from being on the phones all week, but a video is a much more known thing for us. And like his time making a video is better spent that way.
Yeah, exactly. What's the ROI? And at some point it makes sense to do. Obviously a lot of people have sales departments, you know? So I think it kind of makes more sense when you're bigger and your marketing thing's kind of settled and you can afford to hire some people to like solve the sales problem. Like if I didn't have 1,000,001 other things I had to do, yeah, sure. Put me on this for 6 weeks. I'll figure it out. I'll hire a sales team. I'll get a sales org going and like, then we'll dive in. And like, yeah, it'd probably make money. It probably would make sense to do it. But that is not the lowest hanging fruit for us right now. And honestly, I think it really only makes sense to do way down the road. And there's also an exception here where maybe your customer expects it.
Yeah, I was going to say that if you hadn't, there's in some industries, it's required.
Yeah.
Like if you're selling industrial controls, the integrator wants to be able to talk to their account rep.
Yeah.
No question.
Yep. Yep.
So you want to filter between the engineers and like the customer, and it's expected.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it depends on what it is that you're doing. Maybe you really need a sales team. Maybe that's the only way you're ever going to sell one of your units is to have a salesperson do cold calling, reach out, or maybe it's still inbound, but they want to have a salesperson they talk to.
Yeah.
Important.
There's plenty of industries where no one will buy from you unless there's a phone number they can call whenever they feel like it.
Yep. And you got to support that. Again, going back to understanding your customer. How are you reaching them? What's important to them? This is integral to that. This is an incredibly large part of that. Yeah. So I have had some bouts where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to burn a few days and I'm just going to try and do sales. And like I did, I called hundreds of businesses and I even also did some interviewing of some potential customers and a whole bunch of stuff. And I still do that occasionally, but really it was not an obvious win. Like we did make money from some of those sales. Like I did make a couple sales from it, but like it wasn't the best usage of time at our scale. So, you know, I would say default to maybe not leaning towards this as much unless you have a pretty strong reason to do so for your industry.
There's always hedging. I think I mostly agree. It's the safest way to play it.
I got 2 I mostly agrees so far. That's good. I'm happy with that.
For people interested in trying it, you could have like an outside sales partner. People are paid on 100% on commission. There's sales agencies. Like I'm just loosely aware that those concepts are out there.
Yeah.
You don't have to think of it as like a full-time hire.
Yeah.
So there's ways of trying it on and see if you even enjoy the concept of that.
Yeah.
For like popular, like as Steven said, it's just not an important or urgent thing for us to be thinking about right now.
Yeah. And there are also a lot of organizations that never have a sales team and they're fine. You know, they just go through marketing, they go through word of mouth, and that does wonders for them. And that's great.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a weirder one, I think.
The thing that tripped me up is there's like commodity hardware companies with no website. They just make stuff to sell it on Amazon.
What?
Yeah. Imagine like there's people that design lamps and just sell them on Amazon. No sales team, no actual website. They just sell stuff on Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, that's yet another one of these categories of just put it on a marketplace.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the marketplace will do something to buff, you know, the fact that your product exists. You know, I think about Tindy. You know, if I go on Tindy's homepage, it has check out these new products. Like Tindy's doing some work for you there to show some products off. Like that's kind of your marketing in some ways.
I only brought it up because there's no marketing. There's no sales team.
Yeah.
It's just the product kind of speaking for itself based off of with customer reviews.
In a marketplace.
Yeah.
The marketplace is doing the sales and advertising for you. Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah. That's funky. Totally other way to play it. If you're making a light up Pikachu keychain. All right. Off you go. You know, that's perfect. And, you know, completely corollary to what you just said of like no real presence aside from being on Amazon. The other side is like you can have an online presence. Like having a website is your digital brick and mortar store. You know, it is your representation to everybody. Yeah. Having this be professional and use all this copy, like we were talking about of understanding your customer, using the copy that's relevant to these people, showing them the numbers that they care about and is going to matter to them. That's also a huge part of this marketing. It's just like when people actually go to be like, well, who are these clowns? Like, what are they doing? You know, what's their whole sitch? If you're watching a YouTube video or you see an ad or whatever, you hear from a buddy, hey, check out this pick and place machine. And you go to opula.io and the website is like some poorly formatted default WordPress nonsense.
You're going to bounce.
You're going to bounce. You've lost all credibility there. But if it's a nicely formatted, clean, slick thing that looks good and feels professional, that speaks volumes. And it is worth every minute you put into making it feel that way, no matter what.
Yeah. Something that scares me away from a website the hardest is if their emails don't match the domain.
Oh,
or
interesting.
If it's like, hey, for support, contact Bart Simpson at yahoo.com.
Sure. Yeah.
Just, nope. Not professional enough.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, you know, that's there's some level of professionalness, you know, what is that word?
Professionalism.
Thank you. Professionalism. That's just kind of required, you know, like, yeah, having a matching email address, having a formal contact form, you know, all these kinds of things.
Favicon
like,
even.
What was that?
Favicon.
That's a great one. Yeah. Having a favicon. If you don't know what that is, Google it. It's really important to have for your website. Like those are the little things where like, even though it may not really feel like it at the time that it's super important, it's like those things add up and make it feel jank. So it's worth it to present yourself well. And that's going to be, you'll hear a lot about the sales pipeline or the funnel, where like you start with like 1,000 people come to your web store a day. And out of those, 600 clicked on your product page. And out of those, 50 added it to their cart. And out of those, 5 went to the checkout. And out of those, 2 bought it. That's the example of a funnel. Every step you get through, you lose some of those people. You want to keep each stage in that funnel reducing to the next one as little as possible, and making things feel smooth and clean and adding as few clicks as possible really helps to grease the skids on that as well. So make it feel nice, make it feel smooth. Don't get in people's way, make it feel professional. And that helps a ton for making things go well for customers.
And like as a fun example of a successful website, there's a company called Autolawn that we looked to a lot when designing our homepage. And like I thought it'd be fun if we stepped through what we liked about it, what we felt was successful.
Yes. Yeah. We've used them as a reference. They make like automatic lawn watering hardware, and they have a great intro. They add social proof. They have a setup config, easy process to go through and buy the thing. It's great. Like when you first get to the site, they have a video playing to literally show the product working. So immediately you understand what's going on. And if you're like, yeah, whatever, get out of my way, I just want to buy it, there's a big button that says get it now. Like just getting out of the way. It feels smooth. It feels professional. If you try and scale the website, it works on mobile. All that stuff's important. They give a little overview of it, and then they show you the 3 steps that you need to set it up. So now I understand. And again, they're not saying we use this power peristaltic pump to shoot water all over your. I don't care. Do I have to water my lawn anymore? No? Great. That's what I care about. And that's exactly what they do. They say, connect it to Wi-Fi, click a button in the app, forget about it. Perfect. That's what me as a consumer, that's what I care about.
Mm-hmm.
Then they talk about how much money do you save? They have a graph showing of like, hey, if you do like in-ground professional water, irrigation system, this is how much it's going to cost. If you do it yourself, this is how you're going to do it. If you use us, this is how much money it's going to be. Like they immediately show this is how much money you can save. And they also have a configurator tool where you can like literally go into Google Maps and find your house and find your lawn. And based on that, you can like click and draw. I haven't done it in a minute, but you can like click and draw around and it will show you how many units you need to water your lawn. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. It's literally any question I might have as a homeowner with a lawn and I'm trying to set up this system, they answer it, which is very cool. And we've tried to do as much of this as we can. We have a config tool for how many parts do you have in your job? Here's what will set up your lumen. We have a 3D view of the lumen, and it auto-populates feeders and tells you what configuration you need for your job. We tell you how much money it's going to save, how much faster it's going to be to use it. All the questions that your customer would ask, beat them to the punch. Make the website an opportunity to solve every question they might have immediately.
Yeah, let the website be your salesperson.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a great website. We'll put it in the show notes. I think they've just done a stellar job. All their awards are small, but very visible on the homepage. The first thing you see, Time Best Inventions Award, CES Best Innovations Award, like very cleanly right there. It's a great website. I go to it probably once a month. I reference a bunch of websites, a lot of other ones. I look at Prusa's website, I look at Formlabs' website. How do they do it? What's their process for stuff? It's good to check other people and see what feels professional. But yeah, a little bit about websites there.
It's a great site.
Mm-hmm.
And
c'est vrai.
And if you're not a web designer, there's a lot of good agencies out there that can help make a professional looking site.
Mm-hmm.
Another traditional kind of thing to do for selling a product is going to events.
Yeah.
And this one is for Opulo. It doesn't make as many sales as you may expect, but it helps us more refine who the customer is and what types of questions people have.
Totally.
It's almost an investigation for us to go to an event and talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
But for other industries, like let's say you sell a DC power supply for model trains.
Sure.
You should probably go to a model train show with a little table.
Yep. Yep. That is probably worth every penny of getting your hiney to that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we think about whether or not an event will like pay for itself. Was it worth going or was it a cost center?
Yep.
CES would be terrifying for us. I'm not saying go to CES.
Yeah.
Like that's $100K expenditure with a question mark on ROI.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one for people with deep pockets. That's a lot. That's a lot to invest in a show. And also you got to really make sure it's going to matter and you're going to return on it in some way. Like I know talking with the CNC Labs guys, they did really well at woodworking shows.
Mhm.
They did great because a lot of folks are going to that to understand, hey, what's out there for woodworking tools. And a lot of them, I think I could be wrong about this, but I remember them saying they brought some and either they bought them right there or like people bought them on their phones when they're standing at the booth or like they immediately converted because they were watching the machine cut at the show. So it also depends on your industry. I think there's definitely some shows we could go to that might convert better, but I'm not sure about that, so it's something to explore.
Yeah. I think a lesson I'd seen with it was that it can be nice to take your product to like an ancillary show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say we sell a cheese grater. I don't want to go to the cheese grating show.
Right.
I'm going to go to the cheese owners meetup.
Sure. Or the kitchen supply show or something like that. Yeah. Like if we went, it might be useful for us to go to like IMTS or something, which is like a big manufacturing trade show and stuff. I don't know if most of our customers are like not into manufacturing. They're into making their own thing and they're focusing on their own vertical, like drones or water irrigation or whatever thing they're going into. Right. So I don't know if they're going to IMTS, but maybe there's a whole other group of people at the event. Who knows? Like it can be really useful for sales for sure.
Yeah. There's also the types of events where you'd be catching people when they're not in like day job mode. Like IMTS, everyone's wearing their polo shirt on company time in daylight hours, but like
having a lunch beer.
Yeah. But, I don't know. Maybe it's worth paying for a booth at Maker Faire or Open Sauce.
Yep.
Like catching people on the weekends when they're with their kids and you can show people something really cool. That's something we did at the Rhode Island Mini Maker Faire years ago.
That's right.
And we got to practice our pitch on like people with their families.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. That was great. That was before we went to Germany for the, yeah, that's true. That was really good. It definitely didn't have an ROI, I don't think, but like, or maybe it just barely broke even, but yeah, I think it depends a lot on your industry.
Yeah. Ironically for me, pitching and demonstrating the machine to children like really helped me get ready for presenting ourselves to like German engineers.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not calling them children. It gave me a low stress way to practice the pitch.
Yeah. Exactly. It's good it was nice to have an opportunity to pitch it in a chill environment and not like where it was much more of a quiz. It was much more of a grilling thing, but people are just interested in pick and place at Maker Faire. At Electronica, people are there for the specs,
Yeah. It was funny to me. I was like, honestly, if I can keep a child's attention at my booth, I know it's going to go over pretty well for the adults.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you can keep a kid's attention, that's like the argument of like kids shows have it way harder than any other type of show is like, if you can keep a child's attention for a 22-minute TV show, you have done something incredible. That is so hard to do. Like that's a huge task. Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, so events are another thing. Again, depends on what you do. Also could be a tough ROI, but depends on what word of mouth looks like in your industry. Maybe that's the genesis. That's the beginning, like enzyme to like kick off everyone chatting about your product is being at a couple events.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Sometimes just being at the event and showing people that had heard of you through ads or YouTube that you're a person adds an extra like footnote in social proof that just is going to go off to increase your credibility and drive more online sales.
Totally.
Just showing people that you're a person and not vaporware.
Yep. Look, I have it here and it's doing the thing. Yep. Cool. And also one more quick thing about it is like at events, sometimes there's people making YouTube videos. We talked about this in the events episode we just did a few months ago, but that's also a form of social media. People doing reviews, showing stuff off. At IRF, sometimes people make videos about stuff and we've been in a couple of those. That stuff can be helpful as well. So just another part of it as well. It's also kind of can double dip into social media a little bit.
Yeah. All of these things are interrelated and like knotted together in some way.
Yeah.
Like maybe you'll probably find yourself having a social media campaign and a website at the same time, and you'll be changing these things in lockstep with each other. And you're going to be totally, at least for us, we can be totally unsure which one's actually affecting things.
Yeah, exactly. Which leads us beautifully into the other half, which is now you have customers.
Yes.
So if you have customers already, first of all, hell yeah. Nice going.
Pat yourself on the back.
That's sick. That is hard to do.
but now you got work to do.
But now, now you have a fire. You started a fire. So how do you stoke the fire? Yes, okay, you need to have your firefighters working on that fire, but you also want to put a little gas on it. So what do you do when you already have customers and you're trying to increase the number of? And this is where we're at now. Early on, it was a lot of YouTube, honestly, mostly YouTube. And then we've been kind of filling in with those other things as the years have gone on. But now we have them and we're trying to figure out how do we increase things?
Mm-hmm.
First thing is polling, which is, I think, the most important part of this.
Yeah, and it felt counterintuitive, like from like an early onset for me. I was like, we know who they are.
Yeah.
Surely we know who they are. We know better.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I think the most important thing you can do to understand about how you're reaching people and how you can continue to get into the eyes and ears of more people so they know about what you're working on is to poll as low effort as possible for them. So I think the best way that you can possibly pull information out about how effective you are being in your advertising, your marketing, the way that you're telling people about stuff is to poll how they heard about you as soon as they've made a purchase. And this is great for some reason, and it's also not really that great for others, which we'll get into. But you want it to be incredibly low effort. No email needed, no form needed, no labor. Ideally, it's part of checkout. So it's just as you're going through and you're putting in your credit card information and all this other stuff, it's just, how'd you hear about us? Blank, click, move on. And it's just part of it. And you capture that little bit of information.
Yeah, and like you don't want to be asking the customer something you already know. Like, don't waste their time asking their email address. You probably have that from their checkout notes. So like think about what's the most valuable thing there might be. And
exactly.
As you said, it's how did you hear about us?
Yes. Yeah. That is huge. That is huge, huge. And also it doesn't even super matter if it's connected to their email. Like, I think it is. It's nice to know if you understand what their industry is and like what they're working on and how they heard about you. That's better to have that granularity if possible. So that's why it's great to couple it to your web store, because now oh, people that are in, agriculture and irrigation find out about us from Twitter. But people that are in, building their own mechanical keyboards find out about us from YouTube. And then you start to kind of understand how different niches are aware of you. But this is also maybe not great.
Yeah.
Well, why?
Because like there's a bias there.
Yes.
In that one in particular, there's a survivorship bias. There's that story of like planes being reinforced where the bullet holes were when they returned to the hangar.
Yes.
But really they should be reinforced where the bullet holes aren't.
Yes. Because those are the planes that survived.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So in asking people at checkout how they heard of us, you're failing to understand the people who didn't buy it where they came from.
Right. And you know what it might be too? Because this is a really complicated thing. Because if people buy it, and let's say a lot of people say YouTube and not that many people say Twitter, for example, we know that YouTube is a way to reach people that will check out, right? So the more YouTube we make, we know that will result in more sales. But it also means that whatever we're doing on Twitter isn't working. Now, that could mean that Twitter is not where our target market is, and we should stop working on Twitter because no matter what we do on Twitter, it's just a dud. Or it could mean our approach on Twitter is wrong, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know. We don't know if maybe our market hates Twitter, and that's just not where they go, and it's not worth it. So this is tricky. If you're seeing, oh, wow, we're getting a lot of conversions from YouTube, my feeling, and I'm curious if you agree with me on this, is early on, wherever you're getting your biggest market share, double down on that because you know you have the best product market fit there. Whatever you're doing there is a way that you can put more effort into and you know it will return into more sales. And then once you're kind of maxed that out and fully understood that, then dive into the other ones.
Yeah, it's fine. Mostly agree.
Your affirmations of my takes throughout this episode have slowly been declining every time. At first it was like, I agree with that. And then you're like, I mostly agree with that. And you're like, that's fine.
Yeah, we tried departing from YouTube thinking it was something that we had outgrown or hit like a homeostasis with, and we got smacked down for having that be our tact.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, we did double back on YouTube ultimately for Opulo, and it was very rewarding. But like, and just to bully an example, let's say 5% of our customers came from Twitter, but maybe it was 1,000th the impressions that YouTube's having. Like,
right.
That could be, you have to look at it with different contexts because it might be a sign like, oh, if we 10x quadruple down on Twitter,
yeah,
it's gonna be very fruitful.
Exactly. Yeah. You just don't know. And also, how much work is it to 10x your impressions on Twitter? How much work is it to 10x your impressions on YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, we only have so many hours in a week, right?
Yeah.
Per hour, how do you want to optimize your time to try and get the word out to the people that are interested in pulling the trigger, growing your community, growing the company, et cetera, all that stuff? It is a multivariable problem. So when you see the number, when you have customers and you're polling, and we have this, if you buy something from our web store, as soon as you're done checking out, there's a little window that pops up that says, how'd you hear about us?
Mm-hmm.
And you click it and that's it. It doesn't bring you to another freaking website, doesn't bring you to another page. You just click it and we go, thanks. And that's it. As low barrier to entry as possible. We look at that constantly. And what you do with that information is kind of wiggly, you know, like, okay, we have a lot from this. Does it mean we double down on that? Does it mean we're dropping the ball on the other ones? Kind of depends. How much time do you have? How many resources do you have? How well are you doing on those platforms? You know, if half our sales, let's say half our sales were from Twitter and half our sales were from YouTube, and I tweet once a year versus I make 2 YouTube videos a month, I should probably tweet more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's such a messy thing. So it just depends on all these other variables, but you need to track this crap. You have to know where people are finding out about you.
Mm-hmm. Tracking the purchase is like the one thing you know for sure. Like you can't really interview people that didn't buy it as easily. You might not have even gotten their email address.
Right. Yeah. And also those are the people that didn't buy it.
Yeah. They might not matter.
They may not be the people, they may not ever buy it is really the thing. Because like what you want to try and differentiate is the people who came to your web store, they almost bought it, but they didn't, but they would have if XYZ ABC versus the people who went to it and they were just, oh, this is kind of cool. Let me add it to my cart. Like I go to Formlabs' website, I'll add a fuse to my cart and a blast and like all their crazy products. And my cart is like 80 grand. And I'm like, all right, never mind. I was never going to buy it anyway. And I just closed the tab.
Teehee.
Exactly. JK, unless fuse setup. Huh? But you know, those are the people you want to ignore. What about the people who go and set up an 80 grand build for a fuse and they're actually thinking about it?
Yeah. For us, a good North Star is, did they check the price of shipping?
Yeah. Did they bother to put in their address to see what it would cost to ship it? That's a huge indicator. So these are all things you have to think about. But know that this is a bias of who actually decided to do it. And maybe you're dropping the ball on people that almost did it, but didn't quite. And there's a huge untapped market there, but also, you know, those people are converting. Yeah, whatever. It's a lot of stuff.
So like clearly it's kind of confusing to track where people came from, what they need, who they are. And it's all to say like analytics are really important. Monitoring keenly monitoring who people are, how they view your site, how they got there.
Yeah.
So paramount to success.
Yep.
Really understanding where people are coming from is one of the more important things you can set up on the website.
Yes. And it's also, and when you say analytics, you mean like Google Analytics, like a tracking cookie on the website to know where people, when are they coming in? Where are they from? Just understanding who's visiting your website.
Let's not even assume people know what that is. And for those that aren't really sure what this is or haven't set it up before, Google Analytics lets you put like a tracking cookie on your product site and see how people go from page to page. It shows you what device they're on. It shows you a little bit of demographic stuff, but it's usually anonymized.
And it also shows you how they got to your page. Yeah.
That's super key. Facebook Pixel does roughly the same thing. Shopify for us has a similar tracking thing, but it's all just really powerful ways of seeing how people discover your product and engage with it on the internet.
It's huge. Yeah. It's also very interesting because you can see like I'll post a YouTube video and then a ton more clicks come into our website from YouTube. Or like what's also really interesting about this, and one of my favorite things about this is I'll peruse this every few days and just see where people are coming in from. And sometimes we'll get a really weird one. Like someone, 18 people came from this website. I'm like, the heck is that website? And I go and someone wrote a blog post. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like it's a way of kind of keeping on top of that stuff. My favorite one is, this is my favorite one to see, is when I won't see it at all for a while. And then suddenly I'll get like 30 hits from Microsoft Teams. And I'm like, oh, someone dropped the link to the machine in like their work chat and everyone clicked on it and like went to go check it out in someone's work chat somewhere. Yeah. It's very funny. It's kind of interesting to see like, okay, so that's people discussing it, internally as part of a company, all that kind of stuff. Very funny.
But yeah, analytics help you feel less blind to a very chaotic black box.
Yep. And it also helps understand if something worked. Another huge part of this is UTM parameters. So if you're not familiar with UTM parameters, it's effectively, if you have Google Analytics set up on your website, which I recommend that you do, you can pretty much add a little bit of stuff at the end of a link, and it will make it so that Google will keep track of which link that one was, is the best way of saying it. So like I will make a UTM link for every one of my YouTube videos. I make a different one for every YouTube video that links back to the Lumen product page. And that way I can see how many people clicked on that link for a specific video. And I can see how well it's converting. A lot of people just open a new tab and Google Opulo. So it's kind of hard to track that, which is fine because you can also see, oh, I post a YouTube video, a lot more organic search happens. Okay, it's because of the YouTube video. But making UTM parameters and setting up UTM tracking and stuff is also incredibly helpful. And it's worth it to do it for sure. It's definitely good to track that kind of thing.
It's what lets me be able to drop fun facts. Like no one's ever bought a Lumen from an iPad.
That's right. I think we talked about this on
tablet running Linux.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I don't even think I have a tablet running Linux.
There are a couple, but
oh yeah, but not many.
My ThinkPad when I fold the keyboard the right way. There you go.
When you break off the base.
Yeah. It shows you like how to optimize like and spend your time the best.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to make the website super iPad compatible.
If that were the case, maybe we don't care as much about iPad or, whatever it is, or we put a bunch of money towards a certain ad. For example, like Facebook, like I can put a ton of money towards a Facebook ad and Facebook will give me all of these numbers already in their portal, even though it's an absolute minefield to navigate. Any ad software, the websites are just these complex labyrinths of UI menus. It's infuriating. I do not like them. But you can also see, from Facebook, this ad campaign, sure enough, these many people clicked in from it and you can track it there. So it's just good to, what gets measured gets managed. If you keep track of it and you can see where people are coming from, you're aware of the situation.
Another whole component to like already having customers and needing to get more sales is just ensuring that people are happy and sharing their experiences. There's nothing better than someone sharing their success and telling their friends about it.
Yep. And that's something we've been really lucky to see over time. The percentage of people of like, how'd you find out about us that is recommended from friend or colleague has been like steadily growing quarter after quarter after quarter, which is very cool to see and like a good sign. So that's part of it too, for sure, is like making sure people are doing that. And we do that with the customer spotlights.
Yeah. Think about like how exponential sales for any org would be if every customer went on to create 2 more.
Yeah.
That'd be an awesome replacement rate. Like not everyone's going to buy a second machine, but maybe someone will get their friend to look into it.
Yep, absolutely. And part of how we do that is with the customer spotlights.
Yeah. And they've been awesome. Like Mitchell does an incredible job working with like power users and interesting folks in our community to write up what they did, what worked well for them, like how they improved upon their experience. It's a lot of fun to read these articles and people will be proud that they're featured in it and reshare it. And it gives us like really organic talking points about how the Lumen's helping people be successful. Yeah.
It shows, hey, look, this is literally how they're choosing to use it. This is how it's been useful for them. That's been a really cool one. And selfishly, like we get to see cool stuff people are using the machine for. Like, look at this cool. My favorite thing is seeing all the crazy pictures they post of like, here's my setup. And it's like, oh my God, that's such a sick shop. Like they have such a cool line set up. Oh man, it's great. Yeah, that's a big part.
There's some users I wish we could publish a story on. It's so fascinating what the Lumen can be used for sometime.
Yeah, I know. It's very annoying we can't share some of the things people are doing because they're so cool.
Yeah, sometimes it's not even for circuit boards.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time the weird applications are not even remotely related to circuit boards.
Yeah, those are always fun.
Yep.
And even if you don't have an active sales team or like sales rep, there's still an immense value in like closely managing your inbound leads. And those are people that reach out to you again. It's often the case that people reach out to our support channel just to ask questions and understand if the Lumen PMP is like right for them.
Yeah. And
those are sales prospects. And you would not want to ignore those people because they're not looking for help with their machine. That'd be insane.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like if people are, this is a sign that you've done something right of catching their attention, but they don't quite have all the info they need. So just helping answer their questions, honestly answering like, yeah, I think this would be good for you. I think this wouldn't be good for you. And again, this doesn't apply so much for a t-shirt or a mug. It's like, you want the mug if you want the mug and you buy the mug because you know what a mug is. Yeah. But if you're selling, a different piece of hardware, it's useful to have that. I think it's really nice to have that option for people because a lot of people, especially if they're making an investment in a tool, they want to know it's going to work for them. They want to know it's going to check their box.
Yeah, it's an emotional thing for them. They want to be assured by someone they can speak to that it'll be right.
Yep.
And for some industries, like maybe that's a phone number that they can call and ask.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Something related, we for the longest time didn't have our online web store chat enabled.
Yeah.
For the ability to just directly message it's like your Facebook message. And by having it on, it pays for our time in spades. It's a no-brainer to have it on.
Yeah. It's great to have it. Originally, we had it on. I think we had it on for like feeder launch day to answer immediate questions people had. And I thought it was going to be a big time sink, and it really didn't end up being one. We kind of just left it on after we turned it on for V4 launch, and we just kind of left it on. And it's been pretty chill. Like every once in a while, we'll get someone poking and like asking a legitimate question. But, having an avenue where people can reach out and then we can respond to their question that isn't necessarily going through the whole, customer support pipeline. If you're just trying to ask a quick question about like, hey, will this work for me? Will this work? My board has this many parts. Can it work? Blah, 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 blah. That's really nice to have that option. So it's been good to have that. I'm glad that we've kept it on.
Yeah, it's been super handy. And with every inbound lead and the questions they have, it's a chance to make the website better.
Yeah.
I think about the fact if one person's asking this question, there's probably 10 that didn't and just disappeared into the ether.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's super true. So yeah, keeping an eye on what people ask in that and trying to catch them where like before they're like, I just don't know. Like if they didn't know and they had to ask us a question, we kind of dropped the ball there by not getting them that information organically. If they had to reach out, not that it's a problem if they do, like it's fine if you want to ask clarifying questions or whatever, but the more we can set people up for success on answering their own questions, the better. The more they can just dive into answering the question. That's excellent. So it's honestly a great feedback loop of like, enough people have asked. Mitchell was just saying to me the other day, there's something people wanted like setup information of like, what are the requirements for the space needed?
Yeah, like air purity or vibration.
Yeah. And like that kind of stuff is not, I wouldn't have thought to include that. But for a lot of the people that are asking about this, they want like a list of like, you need this much table space. You need to have this power close by with this distance. And like, they want a really specific, rigid list of those things. We're going to add that.
Yeah.
It's on my to-do list to add that to the webpage. So people know that kind of thing. So yeah, it's also good for just staying on the beat of what people are asking about, understanding your customer better.
Yeah. Lowering that friction.
Yep. Lowering the friction. Yep.
And then there's a whole slew of other things that we may or not, that we've tried a little bit. Sometimes we haven't, but they're still respectable and worth mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
The first in our little list here was like referrals and affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
Hey, better off for like the t-shirt or your coffee mugs and your cutesy things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just a thing to be aware of. Reseller networks. For some products, that's the only way to sell things.
Yeah.
Like
a dealership almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Ford, for example. Ford doesn't have a car store. They have a reseller network.
Yeah, exactly.
And that works really well for them so they can focus on being a car manufacturer. They're not distracting themselves with this entire sales org. They'd rather sell 10 million cars a year to these 1,000 different dealerships and just move on with their lives.
Sure. Yep.
Totally valid.
Yep. For sure. Yeah.
There's Box Retail, RIP Radio Shack. It'd have been so fun.
Forever in our hearts.
Yeah. It'd have been real fun to be able to buy a Flipper Zero there. And I probably would by default, not in cash if I could.
Yeah. The only way to buy a Flipper Zero
sick.
In cash, in person.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Under a pseudonym.
There you go. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you sell a soldering kit that should be sold at Micro Center.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty of validity there.
Yeah.
Works great for Raspberry Pi.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. It, again, depends on your thing. If you make an IoT light bulb, right? You make a cool little, home assistant controlled light unit, something like that. Maybe it's great to be in a store. Maybe that's awesome for you. Cause you can catch people who are just perusing the light bulbs in the light bulb aisle and they're like, oh, what's this? And then they pull the trigger. Maybe that's excellent for you. Maybe that's where people only ever think about buying a light bulb. Put it in a box, get them in the store, deal with the markup, move on from that,
I know for our friends at Recon Tools, it was an immense point of pride for them to be able to say that they're like smart tape measures being sold in Lowe's and Home Depot.
Yeah.
And then that, again, it adds social proof and like credibility just to be able to say, this real place sells our stuff.
Yeah. And reach.
Yeah.
Like if you hadn't heard of Recon Tools before because you don't follow them on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever it is, but you're just some person walking around in Home Depot, I mean, that's a completely different avenue, different scale of reach by getting there, which is awesome.
Yeah, there's billions even. Like,
yeah.
You can get them in person in a totally different way.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, also a great way to go about doing it, but really depends on your niche, I think.
And then there's email campaigns, which we've dabbled in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you can't do this if you don't have people to email.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
But a really well polished email can go a long way. a nice email has a pretty high chance of being opened
Mhm.
and being read. So if you put effort in, you're going to get reward out.
Yep. And you're not spammy with it.
Yeah.
Like we have an email list that started before we started even selling the machine, and we were just a project and we were just trying to collect email addresses on like our website. And so we will email that group when we have a new product going out. We have a monthly newsletter where we tell people about, hey, check out this cool new customer spotlight of what people are, making with the machine, new podcast episodes, blah, 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 all this other kind of stuff. We're like, and it's not spammy. We don't do it very often, but it's a reminder every month. Hey, yep, we're here. We're making new stuff. We're working on new things. Check it out. It's not annoying. It's just a little poke and a reminder. And sometimes when we come out with a new product, we poke it there too. So it's like having an email list is huge. It's such a nice thing to have. I think everyone should have a place where you can sign up for an email newsletter. I use them to keep track of companies that like I think are cool and don't need the thing right now, but I want to keep up to date with what they're doing. It's awesome. I love keeping up to date through an email newsletter. So you should have one.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think of an email, like if all of Opulo is about to be deleted and I could save one asset, it'd probably be the email. I'd put the email list on my tiny little flash drive. There's nothing more important than like your list of people.
I'd save the login for my YouTube first.
Yeah.
But second to that, yeah, I'd probably the email list.
Yeah, that's a great other pick.
Yeah.
But email's so important.
Yeah.
It's a portable way you can take this across multiple mediums or platforms, and like it is your community at the core of it. It's not people's accounts on your Shopify, it's their emails. I think it's your customer community. Yeah.
Well, it depends on how you're gathering these emails, right? Like in the early days, we were gathering people that were just kind of interested in the project. And now it's turned into like true customers. Because I think most of our community is in Discord, but like people who are interested in buying the thing, aware of the company itself. Yeah. Email newsletters like center point for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super important thing to not sleep on, but definitely have to find your voice and refine that.
Yeah. All right, folks, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcast. It helps us out tremendously. You can learn more about Opulo at opulo.io, as well as YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can also email us at podcast@opulo.io with questions or comments on the episode. And also, if you or someone you know uses Lumen PnP for work and you want to be part of our customer spotlight, drop us a tip there at podcast@opulo. And we'd love to hear what you're doing with it, and we'd love to have you in a customer spotlight sometime soon. To keep up to date with the podcast and Opulo, sign up for our newsletter where we write blog posts and conduct customer interviews with other folks building open hardware. We'll see you in the next one.
See ya.
Bye. SB Mowing, out.